Before the San Francisco Giants could rise again, there had to be heights from which they fell, a dynasty in tatters, greatness still to achieve.
Here it is, struck him out, and for the first time since 1954, the Giants are world champions. And listen to these fans as that celebration happens. In San Francisco going crazy, and here in Arlington applauding.
Their third clincher on enemy turf.
Second since moving to San Francisco, 58. Again, the 2-2 pitch. Got him looking, and the Giants have won it all. This team that was down 2-0 going on the road to Cincinnati in the division series, they came back and won it. Down 3-1 to the Cardinals. They won Game 5 and won Game 6 and 7 to get here. And now it took 4 games to win the World Series for the Giants over the Tigers. Salvador Perez, the 2-2. Popped up. Sandoval in foul territory. Giants win! A World Series win for the San Francisco Giants for the 3rd time in the last 5 years. And their hero, Madison Bumgarner.
In the 4 years since, the Giants have made the playoffs just once, never winning more than 90 games and finishing as low as 5th in the division in 2017. This year, Pacoda has the Giants projected to win just 73 games, again finishing last in the division. With Giants fans clamoring for a return to greatness and some of the old stars now weighing down the payroll, it's time for a rebuild. Welcome to my OOTP rebuild of the San Francisco Giants. I am Ryan, or OOTP Gamer, playing this save as Ryan Dempster, and I hope that intro got you excited for this series, because I'm definitely very excited to rebuild the Giants. If you're wondering about some curious items just on this front screen, I hired Theo Epstein because for some reason he was available as a scout and had some really good scouting ratings and didn't love my scout, so he becomes the new scouting director for the Giants. And Kevin Pillar, for some reason, is not on the Giants roster, although all the players the real-life Giants traded to Toronto are miraculously on the Blue Jays. So we'll have to leave that trade to the what ifs of history, because I honestly wasn't the biggest fan of the Pillar trade to begin with. I don't want to give up more players to get a $6 million guy who really I don't know what he has to add to a rebuilding team. But so, I wanted to take on the Giants because they're in a really interesting position. They're not like most other rebuilding teams in that they have, a huge market size. They have a huge budget. And so those are usually traditional, concerns for teams like the Marlins or the Orioles or, the Royals or a team like that. So if this team is really going to be a different beast, you look at the Major League roster and there's not a ton of talent there. So that's challenge number one. And then you look at, the reinforcements from the minor leagues, and really this is going to be challenge number two, if you will. The Giants' second worst minor league system, ahead of only the Boston Red Sox. So without further ado, we will break down the roster. So first up, we look at lefty Steven Duggar. And this is, honestly a prime time rebuild kind of candidate. Theo likes him a decent bit. Honestly, obviously, solid defender, but, really not much there. But, the key here is he is making the minimum and is, has a ton of team control left. So he's a guy we'll probably ride out for a little bit while we wait for reinforcements to arrive or before making some moves either at the deadline, or maybe in the free agency market. So Steven Duggar probably around for a little while. Next, we look at Mac Williamson, righty, again, kind of in the same boat of, relatively young guy who,
does not, obviously doesn't stand out. Obviously is not a great player when you look at that batting average in the majors last season, and you just look at the ratings. Not too different from OSA to Theo Epstein, but another guy that, honestly, as long as he's cost controlled and as long as he is not taking up time from a better player that we can acquire, he'll probably stay on the team. So moving on to the heart of the order, Evan Longoria. Obviously, don't love this contract, although I do love the team option starting in 2022. If we can trade him in a trade that feels realistic, because I don't really want to rip anybody off in a trade that doesn't feel right, we'll look to trade him, but otherwise we will just have to deal with the ramifications of that contract and how it goes. But again, he could be probably not a third hitter in the lineup, but coming off a solid one WAR season, obviously you love the captain, you love the high work ethic and intelligence, so his ratings probably won't decline a ton, but probably won't get better either, and again on the wrong side of 30. So moving on to moving on to Brandon Belt, another really expensive player, making $16 million through 2021. So again, we'll maybe see if we can trade Baby Giraffe away. But if we don't get a fair, good offer, could be worse guys to hang around. Again, another one WAR player, not really making too many waves, but you like that gap power, you like that eye, and obviously a solid defender at first base. But again, nothing to write home about. He could be one of the people that is the first to go just because of that massive contract. And if we could get even rid of half of it, maybe retain 50%, that could open up some additional budget space for us. All right, moving on to Brandon Crawford. Again, he's a prototypical defensive whiz at shortstop. Both Theo and OSA really like his range and arm, and honestly probably good for most of those 2 wins above replacement based on his defense alone, as he is remarkably average at the plate. And again, another huge contract, $15 million, and again through the 2021 season. So we'll see if we keep him around. Again, I don't know about decisions on a lot of these bigger players, but trading them has to be on the table. All right, now we get to probably the best player on this roster, Buster Posey. You look at these ratings, and he's truly a stud. And really the only concerns would be, obviously you can't see his injury history in the game, but his real-life injury history is a player that only played 105 games last season, but was still good for almost 2.5 wins above replacement. Obviously a stud catcher, personality class captain. Honestly, this is the kind of guy you want on your team, and if we had a better team, I think we could make more use of this $21 million contract. He's going to be probably somebody that I'm most hesitant to trade because you want those good locker room presences in the rebuild, and obviously an extremely popular guy, so that would be a huge hit to fan interest if he were to be traded. Okay, so moving on to the last couple hitters in the lineup, Joe Panik. And Joe, obviously, really good at avoiding the strikeouts, good contact hitter, but again, really, not much to speak of. Again, making a pretty low amount of money, so I'm not too concerned, but obviously we're looking to upgrade everywhere on the team, and second base is no exception, even with Panik manning it. And then Gerardo Parra. Really nothing to write home about. Just kind of a filler level player that we can keep in here while we wait for better players to come, either through trades or through the draft or through free agency. And so finally, we are looking at the pitching staff of this organization, starting with Madison Bumgarner, who of course has many favorable memories with the San Francisco faithful. And if you are a Giants fan, you know that his contract expires after the season, and just looking at his ratings and kind of how his performance has dropped off even just a little bit, and how he's had some troubles pitching that maximum allotment of innings, I find it difficult to imagine that we're going to re-sign him, and he probably will go for the best deal, whether that's at the start of the season, whether that's at the deadline. But I really can't imagine Madison Bumgarner in the orange and black for much longer. So stay tuned, because he's definitely going to be the first big piece from those past Dynasty rosters that is going to go. And then actually look at Derek Rodriguez. I really do like that control, that 60 grade control, and he really has some good pitches, according to Theo, and pretty much the same across OSA. Had a really good season last season, obviously the 2.81 ERA and really the low BABIP, so I'd imagine that would regress a little bit, but making only the minimum, young guy, he's somebody that'll probably stay on the roster for a little while, even if he doesn't continue to perform at the kind of the crazy good level that he performed at last season, just because I think this is a guy that could be a really good player to build around, or at least a solid player, and I think he's going to get that chance to prove himself. Okay, so on to Jeff Samardzija, and Jeff obviously has those 2 more years of $18 million, which isn't too bad, but considering that movement rating is pretty abysmal, no above average pitches, and again, that good control, but coming off that really poor season and split between the majors and AAA, and even looking at the season before, just really hasn't been great, aside from keeping down those walks in 2017, but didn't show that ability in 2018. So he'll be on a short lease. I can't imagine we would get much back for him, but as always, I will definitely test out the market, and if there's a fair trade, we will try and make it, but otherwise Jeff Samardzija will probably be on the roster until we can kind of ride out the end of his contract. Next, Drew Pomeranz, who's just on kind of a short 1-year deal. Probably will just stay on the team for this season, because there's no real point in trading a guy who's making $1.5 million. And maybe his knuckle curve will do wonders in San Francisco, so we will have to see. Obviously did not have a great season last year. Okay, and finally rounding out the rotation is Derek Holland, who was really good in his kind of first Giants season last year, and really not that low BABIP that you kind of look at as kind of a prime sign for regression. So maybe we found a gem here. The ratings don't seem to back that up from either Theo or OSA, but only making $6 million with a team option for next year. So if he sucks it up big time this year, we can always decline it, and a $0 buyout. So really no risk and all reward here for Derek Holland, and hopefully he knows he's playing for his contract this season. So we're going to start from the bottom, actually, with the bullpen. Tony Watson, under contract for 1, possibly 2 more years. Guy who can eat up innings and really pitch. So don't have too much to say about him, but he could actually earn maybe a bigger role in the bullpen if he lives up to these ratings. These ratings are pretty good, and he's cost controlled. So something you're not seeing a lot on this Giants roster, a cost controlled good player. On to Nick Vincent. Again, have a lot of really good control guys on this roster, which is what I'm seeing as a theme of this team. New signing, only on the books for 1 season. Again, another kind of tryout, fill the gaps guy until maybe we can get somebody from our minor league system coming up. Sam Dyson is next. That's a strange nickname. Don't know the origin of that one. If anybody knows, put it in the comment section below. But had another really good season for the Giants last year. And you look at that ERA plus, which takes into the park factors into account. It's really, really good. So hopefully he can be solid. He's making $5 million this season, which seems excessive for a guy who's not even maybe one of the top 4 or 5 guys in the bullpen. But if he earns that money, he will see more of it in the offseason, because we certainly have plenty of it to dish out with our large budget. And then Mark Melancon, or Melancone, I don't really know, is making $14 million, which is just so ridiculous. There are so many bad contracts on this team. Decent enough ratings. If we can trade him, we absolutely will, because I don't see him factoring into our long-term plans at age 33. And again, that contract is just ghastly. So obviously not ideal for Mark there. Now we get into our kind of top 3 of the rotation. Really like this Reyes Maranta guy. He's kind of the opposite of all the other pitchers on our staff. Not a ton of control. As you can see, those walk numbers are pretty elevated, but he has the stuff for days. I mean, those really, really high grade pitches, 3 pitches in fact, which is, excellent for a reliever. And as you can see, I mean, those strikeout numbers are just excellent. So if he can keep the walks down, maybe he can build on these 2, or really this one season where he had that low ERA, even though, again, the low BABIP. But excited to see he will definitely be sticking around for a while at only 26 years old. Then our other setup guy, Ray Black, another kind of same mold. Obviously, you love a guy that can hit over 100 miles per hour on the radar gun. I have actually ratings that, if they're above 80, they will display as above 80. So, he's got that really, really elite stuff. Again, a ton of team control left, and can just strike out guys for days. So, again, he will be a part of the long-term plans, and this is probably the most interesting decision that will be had to make in the near future, as Will Smith's contract expires this season. If we look at what he's asking for in terms of contract extension, pretty reasonable, $7 million. So he will probably get locked up to an extension, as he's coming off a great season, and for only 3 years. I mean, how much regression could he really have? And I say that, and he's probably going to become like a 2020 guy in 1 year. But yeah, really like the look of these ratings, and so does Theo. So that's probably about it for the roster. We'll do a quick look. Again, not many prospects to really look at, but we'll take a quick look at Joey Bart. And I'm really not sure why OSA loves him. They give him an 80 grade potential when his ratings really just don't look that good. And Theo really doesn't like him either. So honestly, I'm going to see if I can get anything good in return for him. Might not be able to trade him until the first year player draft, because I think it's a year until you can trade recently drafted players. But I don't know. I really don't love, even if he grades out at max, he's still just above an average catcher and slow speed. I don't really see the hype here, and neither really does Theo. So he's obviously our best prospect. He's our only prospect in the OSA top 100, and just don't see a lot there. I mean, we look at a AAA roster, not really a ton of guys. So we will do some maybe wheeling and dealing off camera before the next episode. Going to sim to the first year player draft, so you can see what happens to the first year player draft. We'll sim to international free agents. Both of those things will be in the next episode. I will keep you up to date on any trades that I've made. Hopefully we can get some of these big contracts at the books. And the only player that I think you can be pretty assured is safe is Buster Posey. Pretty much anyone else is fair game. And I'd be remiss to not mention Johnny Cueto, but he's still going to be out for a while, so won't be a factor for a little bit. But that's all I have for this episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, hit a like underneath the video. Again, not for me, but for the algorithm, so more people can find this video, get more advice on what you guys want to see happen. But leave a comment. I'm more than down to engage with that kind of stuff in the comment section below. So hope you enjoyed this video, and hope you enjoy seeing how far I can take these San Francisco Giants.